In this video, we're going to take a look at a red ink by Pilot, their Mixable Red. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the red ink playlist, so if you wanted to see more, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, no shading, none whatsoever. The only thing we see is that the extra fine comes out a little lighter than the stub or the medium. The extra fine took 16 seconds to dry and the medium took 20. Scrubby for both give no color variation. We're not getting it in the writing, and a smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Sailor, my first pen, with a fine medium nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. Now, we don't get any bleeding, but we do get significant ghosting, more because it's a very thin paper. We have no feather, no spread. We don't get shading in any of the writing, but we do see some tone variation. Again, the extra fine looks a bit lighter than the stub or the medium. The extra fine took 20 seconds to dry, while medium took 29. Scrubby for both give no color variation. We're not getting it in the writing. And the smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we see is there is a very pink tone at the bottom and it's moving up, but then we start to see this red come in as it pushes and gathers at the top. Now, the one on the right that's let dry for 10 minutes shows the red has started to form a bit of a line underneath, but then we see that pink with some of the red over it. So what we're actually seeing is there are two tones used to make this ink, the pink and the red, because the red then picks up again at the top and then gathers towards the top. It does show that that red might be a little bit resistant. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, and no shading. We do have tone variation in the extra fine, as it has been, is a bit lighter than the stub and the medium. The extra fine took 13 seconds to dry, while the medium took 15. Scrubby for both said no color variation, and there was none in the writing. And the smear test, still, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink could be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, this performed exceptionally well. You don't see any loss of information there, which makes you feel very safe using it in a note-taking situation. And this is held up when you look at what's going on with water, where it's really only starting to move some of its darkest tones, but a lot of that ink is very much there and staying. The pen flush you see is really breaking it down. It's showing a lot of the white of the paper coming through. Now, while it took pen flush to get it off the paper, it only took water to get this out of my pen. The 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it, but it's also discoloring the paper a little bit. The next writing sample is done on live paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, no shading. We do have tone variation. Again, the extra fine's lighter than the stub. The medium is a tad darker than the stub. Extra fine took 14 seconds to dry, while medium took 19. Scrubby for both give us no color variation. We get none in the writing, and the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Pilot's Mixable Red has a viscosity of 1.38, making this a wet ink. Now, if you're interested in how the viscosity tests are done and all of that stuff happens, then down in the description is a link to that video. The next writing sample is done on Levenger paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, no spread, no shading. The extra fine is lighter than the stub. The medium's the same tone as the stub. Extra fine took 4 seconds to dry. Wow, that's fast. And the medium took 6. Still, wow, that's fast. The scrubby for both give no color variation, and there is none in the writing. The smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Pilot's Mixable Red has an average dry time of 19 seconds, making it normal. The last writing sample is done on Franklin Christoph paper. Now, this is not the normal problem for this paper, but we are getting a lot of bleed spots that are coming very heavy into the page. None of these are coming through the page, but they do render using the back of the page useless because it'll destroy both sets of notes. We have feathering in the stub. We have tiny feathers in the extra fine. No feathering, no, my bad, there it is in the brown. Tiny feathers in the medium. So a lot of feathering going on here, which is its own little bit of a problem. We have no spread. We have no shading. But the extra fine as a tone is lighter than the stub or the medium, which are both the same tone. The extra fine took 4 seconds to dry, and the medium only took 4 seconds to dry. So these fast dry times are this ink bonding very quickly with the paper rather aggressively. The scrubby for both show no color variation. We didn't get any in the writing, and the smear test, you stand a decent chance of recovery if you smear while you're writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Pilot's Mixable Red, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a blue-black by Kaweco, their Midnight Blue. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Pilot's Mixable Red? It seems like there's a ton of reds lately. This is solid performing and a really good prime red for mixing, which is exactly what it's for. But I don't know that I use this as an ink straight up. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? It's a solid performer in every pen that I put it into, and there is some slight tone variation, but it's always very good. While I don't think I would use this as a red in general for writing, I do think if I was to get into mixing, I would look at using this. This is dealer's choice. It always performs well. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Ackerman's number 9.